WNBA was quickly engulfed in a new issue with far-reaching repercussions when Alyssa Thomas, a talented player from Connecticut, came to the microphone and blasted Indiana Fever fans. According to Thomas, who has played for 11 years, "I've never experienced the racial comments I've heard from the Indiana fan base." This occurred concurrently with the Indiana Fever and Caitlin Clark being ruled out of the playoffs. The ramifications that Thomas and the league will face, you heard that right after all. Alyssa Thomas was suspended following a subpar playoff performance against the Minnesota Lynx because of an incident with Caitlin Clark that raised racial issues. The fallout has stunned the sports community. Thomas focused on accusing Caitlin Clark's fans of racism instead of taking accountability for her subpar play.
In my 11-year career, I've never experienced the racial comments from the Indiana Fever fan base. We had her face on a serious matter that happened in this world, and it's unacceptable, honestly. And there's no place for it, and we've been professional throughout the whole entire thing, but I've never been called the things that I've been called on social media, and there's...
Is Alyssa Thomas' accusation accurate or misplaced? Following Thomas' remarks, there have been contentious debates, with some people endorsing her right to speak out against racism. What's the real story behind M and others' accusations that she mistreated this sensitive topic in order to escape responsibility for her poor performance on the court? Let's start by talking about the primary accusation leveled against Alyssa Thomas. Was this a ruse to draw attention away from her team's playoff exit, or did she actually experience racial slurs from fans? The Indiana Fever fan base had made derogatory remarks regarding race, so she thought it was time to speak up. But here's the issue. Rather than providing specific proof to back up her claims, Thomas issued a broad statement calling all of her followers racist. There were no game-related incidents, audio recordings, or social media posts. She did this, and many are now questioning why. Was this an emotional outburst following a tough loss, or was it a calculated move to deflect criticism for her subpar postseason play? It is important to understand Caitlin Clark's ascent and her fan base in order to fully appreciate the significance of Thomas's comments. Due to her explosive play style, quick reflexes, and floor leadership, Clark has been the face of the NBA's next generation during the last 12 months. Her popularity is well-deserved, as evidenced by the high ratings her games consistently receive, but it also brings with it considerable criticism. Clark's ascent has drawn criticism, especially from players who feel that her celebrity exceeds their own achievements in a variety of ways. That brings us to the main point of contention. Alyssa Thomas, a seasoned veteran, could understandably feel ignored given that Clark represents a new era in the WNBA, one in which young, energetic women are anticipated to rule the league for years to come. By accusing Clark's supporters of racism, Thomas has not only assailed the actress directly but also indirectly through her supporters. Thomas seems to be indicating that Clark's success isn't just due to her talent. It's possible that part of the reason for Clark's outstanding appeal is her race. Prior to exploring Thomas's specific accusations in more detail, let's first talk about the history of racism in sports. Understanding the broader context of racism in sports is essential. Professional athletes have long been the targets of racist remarks from their fans, particularly from players of color. Racist jokes aimed at soccer players and derogatory remarks made about basketball players on social media are two examples. Alyssa Thomas' accusations are especially harmful because they throw a negative light on her whole fan base. Although racism in sports is clearly a problem, it's still unclear if Alyssa Thomas brought the controversy up to deflect criticism from social media and her own performance. The WNBA, or Women's National Basketball Association, has demonstrated a strong commitment to social justice issues. Gamers talk out about racial injustice on a regular basis. Clark got the last laugh though, since the Fever got the ball back as a result of Thomas' aggressive play. While the Sun star was complaining to the referees about the call, cameras panned to Clark sticking her tongue out in response to the play, with the video going viral on social media. Social media went viral after Alyssa Thomas' accusations, and Caitlin Clark supporters hurried to stand up for their favorite player. Hashtag supporting Clark trended as many people argued that Thomas' comments were unfair and unsubstantiated. Sports commentators also offered their opinions on the growing dispute, Supporters of Thomas also emphasized that she had the right to call out the actions she considered wrong, and that players of color often had a harder time taking criticism from fans. Especially again, her timing and whether this could have all been handled differently by making such sweeping charges without providing any supporting evidence left many questioning, particularly among those who supported Thomas's position. Thomas has placed herself in an awkward position by angering a significant portion of WNBA fans. In addition to, she has also expressed a desire for more research on her own actions. Alyssa Thomas's professional background: one of the top players for the Connecticut Sun, Alyssa Thomas is accustomed to the limelight. She's built a solid reputation as a tough, no-nonsense competitor over her 11-year career. She is a formidable force on the court because of her physical play style, and her leadership and work ethic have earned her a lot of respect. For a seasoned player like Thomas, who is supposed to guide her team to victory in this situation, the pressure to succeed is immense. It's probable that Thomas has been impacted by his disappointment with the playoffs. Thomas, who is renowned for her defensive skills and capacity to influence games on both ends of the court, has emerged as a major player in the WNBA. However, Thomas has had difficulties recently because injuries have limited her speed and her results in high-stakes games have been patchy. Additionally, the pressure of expectations added to her outburst, because all athletes are humans and emotions are volatile, particularly following a challenging loss. But considering the history of violent altercations between Thomas and Clark, was this really the right method for her to vent her frustration? Again this season, Alyssa Thomas and Caitlin Clark became the center of contention during an intense game between the Indiana Fever and the Connecticut Sun. As Thomas handed Clark what can only be described as one of the toughest screens in recent memory, the audience gasped in shock, because many spectators believed Clark had sustained a severe injury. The incident quickly became the talk of the league. Thomas was given an aggressive foul by the referees, but they did not punish him further. There was no clear foul, no ejection, only a routine call that supporters of the already simmering animosity between the two athletes was fanned by this occurrence. Caitlin Clark was furious, and many took to social media to express their outrage at the officials and Thomas. Thomas' accusations of racism appear to be an extension of this on-court rivalry, where Clark's fast-paced, ostentatious game and Thomas's aggressive play style collided, paving the way for more altercations. The impact of the media on story form: one of its most intriguing aspects is the way the media has covered the entire story, from podcasts and blogs on the internet to sports broadcasters like ESPN. Everyone seems to have an opinion on the Alyssa Thomas versus Caitlin Clark controversy, but it's important to recognize that our perceptions of athletes are often influenced by the media. To what degree has the media shaped this story, is the question. It seems that Caitlin Clark is the more mature person in this situation, because of her cool-headed and collected response, or lack thereof. Media narratives, though, can be deceptive. While some media sources have jumped to Thomas's defense and criticized Clark, others have adopted a more balanced stance, recognizing the existence of racism in sports and challenging Thomas's timeliness and lack of supporting data. The ultimate product is a convoluted and disorganized tale, with no clear-cut solutions. In this instance, Alyssa Thomas' remarks were swiftly taken up and magnified, resulting in a flurry of media attention that eclipsed her real-world performance on the court. Alyssa Thomas. The consequences and further implications: undoubtedly, Alyssa Thomas' ban has caused a significant blow to her career. Her departure will be felt by her squad, particularly as they continue to aim for. While the Suns' performance is positively impacted in the near term by their postseason success, what are the long-term consequences for Thomas personally? First and foremost, the controversy may overshadow all of her prior accomplishments, which is something she certainly didn't anticipate, given that, as a player, she has spent more than 10 years in the league building a reputation as a strong competitor. Fans and commentators alike are currently questioning her judgment and decision-making, both on and off the court. The claims that she publicly played the racial card have cost her a lot of supporters, and it's not clear if her reputation can ever recover. This could have long-term consequences for Thomas's relationships with her coaches and teammates. Professional athletes require the camaraderie and trust of one another in order to function as a cohesive unit. When the locker room may become unruly when a player is at the center of a conflict this volatile. Lively will her teammates be behind her, or do they believe her actions have damaged the company's reputation? While the WNBA has supported its players on social justice issues, Thomas's future in the league is uncertain due to the suspension. It's unclear what the exact situation is here. Thomas's comments, for which there is no compelling evidence, have undermined the league's ability to regulate how its players behave in public areas. Will the league support Thomas moving forward, or might this suspension spell the end for her WNBA career? The NBA's response, while managing a public relations nightmare in light of the difficult circumstances. How does the WNBA manage this within the league? The league has consistently presented itself as a trailblazer in social justice advancement. Apart from motivating players to voice their opinions against racial injustice and inequality, the WNBA also has difficulties maintaining a positive relationship with its fan base. Claims such as Thomas's have the ability to drive away a sizable portion of the fan base, particularly those who believe they are being unfairly accused of racism for doing nothing more than cheering on a specific player or team. The league needs to figure out how to handle these issues while still fostering an atmosphere that values diversity and respect for all. Furthermore, the conflict has been exacerbated by the way the media has reported it, with different publications adopting drastically different stances. Because of this, the WNBA must be careful about how it presents its own viewpoint to avoid coming across as favoritism, which may worsen animosity between players and supporters. In other words, the WNBA is in a precarious situation. How the league handles Alyssa Thomas's ban will have a lasting effect on how fans view it and how its players are perceived. Athletes have been criticized for their treatment of racial statements and other disputed charges. Not just Alyssa Thomas. The history of professional sports is actually replete with similar situations, and examining them may help us understand how Thomas might weather the storm or how the repercussions might get worse. One such person is Colin Kaepernick, the former NFL quarterback who gained notoriety for protesting racial injustice by kneeling during the playing of the national anthem. The Justice Caper demonstration spurred a national dialogue. Despite becoming well known as a representative of the resistance to racial injustice, he was also met with scathing criticism and even had his NFL job taken away from him. It's clear that each player utilized their respective platforms to confront racial issues, and both received strong reactions. Nevertheless, the key difference is that, in contrast to Thomas's assertions, Kevin had a message and did something tangible. He kneeled. Proof and lucidity. Another example comes from European soccer, where racist slurs are routinely directed towards players of color by fans. Various teams and leagues have taken varied stances on this matter, prohibiting racist fans or starting initiatives to promote equality. These incidents demonstrate how important it is to address charges of racism in a straightforward and consistent manner. The WNBA may wish to have this in mind as it negotiates the aftermath of the Thomas-Clark dispute. If Alyssa Thomas hopes to get past this, the most important thing she needs to understand is that an athlete's reaction to criticism is just as important as the controversy itself when it comes to these past scandals. She will have to take steps to take back her remarks, provide an explanation, and hold meaningful discussions with other athletes and supporters. The way that sports-related conflicts in the modern world escalate is greatly influenced by social media. In the instance of Alyssa Thomas, the storylines surrounding athletes and sports scandals acted as the impetus that turned her post-game comments into a major scandal just hours after she was charged. On Twitter, Instagram, and sports forums, there were a lot of opinions on all sides of the issue. It's noteworthy how fast this online dispute spread. Following Thomas's comments, fans of Caitlin Clark turned to social media to express their outrage at being labeled bigots and to defend their athlete. Supporting hashtags for Thomas and Clark began to circulate. Popular, and there was heated debate on numerous sites. Unlike traditional media, which reports stories and then gives them time to settle in, social media adds another layer of intricacy to these situations. Rather, social media facilitates instantaneous responses that are often motivated more by feelings than by logic. The swiftness and extent of the social media backlash demonstrate how effective these channels can be at spreading controversy. More than ever, athletes now need to be mindful of how their comments may be seen and magnified online. Social media's influence has been a double-edged sword for Alyssa Thomas. While it has given her a platform to speak out, it has also led to swift criticism of her. In Thomas's case, though, her followers rallied around her despite the absence of evidence to back up her accusations. Has heightened antagonism to her as well. Now that everyone is in disarray and only one person has said very little, what will happen to Caitlin Clark? Caitlin Clark was the primary target of Alyssa Thomas's charges. Clark has handled the situation admirably, avoiding the fray and declining to take part in the drama, even if she didn't choose to. While Alyssa Thomas is in the spotlight, she will be able to further her career because she has gained the support of her admirers and shown maturity and professionalism. Despite Clark's choice to remain focused on her game, which has only helped to further establish her reputation as one of the NBA's most gifted players, the controversy still has an impact on her, because it has given rise to accusations of racism against her fanbase. Clark may eventually have to address the issue. It remains to be seen if she chooses to do so in a more reserved way or by making a public statement. But for the time being, it appears that her strategy of being silent is working. Alyssa Thomas' suspension is a sea change for the WNBA as a whole, going beyond just a private scandal. How the league responds to this case will dictate how it responds to cases like hers going forward. Will it put the integrity of the league first by holding players responsible for unproven allegations? Or will it stand by athletes like Thomas who denounce racism, even in the face of shaky evidence? The suspension of Alyssa Thomas serves as a wake-up call, and her response to it in the coming weeks will dictate whether or not she plays in the NBA going forward. The issue surrounding Alyssa Thomas serves as a reminder that even the best-intentioned efforts can have unexpected repercussions for players, fans, and the league as a whole. For better or worse, the WNBA's future will be shaped by this pivotal moment in history. Will she keep drawing attention away from what she did in court? Despite the controversy that has surrounded her, Caitlin Clark's star is still rising. Clark has been able to maintain her distance from the fray and concentrate on what she does best: play basketball. Ultimately, Clark's capacity to maintain composure and professionalism will solidify her role as the WNBA's face for many years to come.